Hello, folks. I just did an entire show and streamed it to my Twitch account instead of YouTube, so I'm going to have to do this all over again. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk just briefly. This is going to be a very short show because I have to go out and drive the junks home, and I already did an entire show that was a waste of time. This should have been done like 45 minutes ago. Anyway. So to begin with, I'm going to play a little submission from Dee Dee of Dee Dee's Mysterious Journeys, and then leave y'all with a few thoughts until next time. So let's start off with Dee Dee's submission.
Hi everyone, this is Dee Dee sharing more mysterious encounters with you from the internet. I'm going to do something a little different this episode by reading 3 encounters all containing creatures turning doorknobs. Accounts such as these have always fascinated me, and I'd like to share them with you. So, here goes. The first encounter is from an article which appeared in the Chicago Sun-Times, dated October 1980 in Maysville, Kentucky. Anna Mae Saunders, still awed by the sight of Bigfoot, says she doesn't want another look at the 7-foot creature covered with long white hair. She is certain she saw it outside the home of her son-in-law in rural Mason County. I just hope that thing doesn't come back, 60-year-old Saunders said. I never saw anything like it in my life. It just looked like a big, white, fuzzy thing standing there on the porch. I never saw its face, and it was above the 7-foot-high door. Saunders' son-in-law, Charles Fulton, said the creature had one of his roosters when he opened the door, but either dropped or threw it as it jumped off the porch. He described the so-called Bigfoot as having long white hair with glowing animal-like eyes. 39-year-old Fulton went outside and saw it standing between the house and an outbuilding. He fired 2 shots with a .22 caliber pistol at the creature, but they seemed to have no effect. It loped off at a slow-motion kind of gallop. Fulton and his family were at their rural home, which is located in a heavily wooded area. While watching television one Saturday night, one of the children came into the living room and said that someone was turning the back doorknob. Thinking the child was joking, Fulton made him sit and watch television. A few minutes later, something nearly tore my front door off, Fulton said. He also said that he didn't tell authorities about the sighting because he feared that no one would believe him. Saunders, who lives in a mobile home near the Fulton home, said, "I'm scared to death to stay by myself now. When I go back to my home, I look in all directions first." The second encounter is from a BFRO report number 15187 dated April 2006 in Hillsdale County, Michigan. The witness didn't provide his name. It was early April in southern Michigan. I was sitting watching TV around 2:30 a.m. and was preparing to go to bed when I felt like I was being watched. I live in a rented 12 by 70 2-bedroom trailer. I was sitting at my PC looking across the room at the TV when I felt odd and noticed in my peripheral vision that I couldn't see my neighbor's light outside. That's when I turned to look straight out the window. The window was about 4 feet from me, and I found myself staring straight into the big, yellowed, bloodshot eyes of a Sasquatch. It looked like it was hairy all over. I saw a hint of reddish, light brown colored hair on its forearm and its shoulder. The lighting on it was poor, and I couldn't make out any facial features besides the eyes, and it was staring right back at me. I've been living in this trailer for 6 months, and over winter months, with no sign of anything strange going around here. When I jumped off my chair, I immediately threw the blanket that I had on my legs off and stared right at it for a second, and then realized my front door wasn't completely shut and locked. I hurriedly reached for the handle to shut it and lock it, and when the door handle met my hand, I tried to push it closed, but it wouldn't move. It was actually pushing the door open on me. After trying to move it, it wouldn't budge, so I gave in and sprinted to the back of my trailer and shut the bathroom door behind me and listened. I listened for a while, and I didn't hear anything actually enter the house. So after a few minutes of quiet, I exited the bathroom and entered my bedroom, got my gun and woke my wife. We both walked quietly back into the living room and the door was opened halfway. But there was no sign of it. It was gone. I called a friend on the phone to come over to use his truck lights and my flashlights to search around, but there were no more signs of it that night. The next morning, I looked for tracks, but there were none. I did, however, find something like hairy, muddy fingerprints on the window pane. I snapped a couple pictures of it, and I stood where it was and determined that the height to be approximately 8 to 8.5 feet tall. Since that night, both my wife and I have heard loud, mournful vocalizations in the middle of the night. We've both gone out to investigate when we hear them, and we hear loud, very large-sounding things moving through the brush and weeds, shaking weeds, and we've smelled an awful, dead, skunk-like smell on a couple of occasions in the early mornings. My friend and I have sat in a vehicle for a few hours in the early night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., and have had heard brush and movement through the weeds, attracting dogs close by to bark, and we've had sticks thrown and rocks thrown at the vehicle we were sitting in. My friend swears he saw something man-like walking across our field of vision, but we didn't get cameras or spot it fast enough. So my friend has also had large footprints in his driveway, and a friend of his son saw a pair of eyes really high up and not very far away in the weeds while he and another boy were jumping on a trampoline one early evening. And now this 16-year-old won't go out at night anymore. My neighbors have been calling the police a couple times a year, mainly spring and summer, about someone or something walking and sneaking around their yard at night. This property is about 20 acres. He cleared about 10 of it and has 3 rental trailers on it. Since the first night I saw this big guy, I've heard it give out vocalizations like I've never heard before. I've been an outdoorsman my whole life, and I swear these were sounds like no other animal in this region could ever make. The third encounter is from an article which appeared in the British Columbia Houston Today, dated October 2008 in Houston, British Columbia. Dolores Harry reported a Sasquatch sighting at her home in Houston, British Columbia on July 28th. She made the report 29 days after the sighting simply because she didn't know who she should tell. At the time of the sighting, Harry heard something crashing outside near her house, and her dogs were anxious to get outside. I'm becoming much more aware of being out here, Harry said, adding her home is surrounded by trees and bluffs. I mean, it could have been a moose or something, but you never know. At 5:45 a.m. in the morning of July 28th, Harry heard her dogs barking at the door. When she went down to investigate, she saw that someone or something was rattling the front door handle. She eventually opened the door, and the dogs were out like a shot, sniffing out something on the east side of her property. When she looked out the side of her house, she saw a creature that was walking on 2 legs, walking away from her. It was huge, and it had long hair, not fur, kind of like the hair which you see on an ox. It was reddish-brown, the color of the trees that are killed by the pine beetle, said the woman. She also added, and it moved so fast. By the time I opened my door, it had run from the porch to the other side of the house. Once outside, her dogs pursued the creature as it continued along a dried-up ravine and disappeared into a forested area. Her oldest dog didn't return for 3 hours. I was worried. But what do you do? Tell people that your dog is chasing Bigfoot? She asked. I drove up and down the road looking for him, and eventually he came back. When she went out later that day, she found the area had markings where something very heavy had laid down the grass along the path. Harry doesn't know why the creature would choose to go onto her property, but the experience has left her a little shaky. I used to only lock my door once in a while. Now I lock it all the time, she said. Well, I know that was short, and those were the encounters which I found rather interesting, all from articles, so I hope that you also enjoyed them. Have a happy new year, and again, thanks for listening.
Another submission by Dee Dee's Mysterious Journals. And just so y'all know, that picture of Dee Dee and the Sasquatch there that I have on there, that's pretty close to the actual size difference between a Sasquatch and Dee Dee, probably. Okay, as I said, and some of you probably didn't catch this at the beginning, I actually did this entire show already, but I screwed up and streamed it to my Twitch account instead of my YouTube account. So I've had to do it all over again. And this was supposed to be a very quick show so I can get out and drive the drunks home and make some money. So I'm going to just leave y'all with a few very quick thoughts about the topic here, which is about the Sasquatch and the doorknobs and that kind of thing. Sasquatch seems to mimic people in a lot of different aspects. They open car doors. They try to open house doors. The one story we have a while back of a Sasquatch that actually entered the house and killed the old woman, drug her off, and more than likely ate her. The Sasquatch broke the door down. The ones that are trying to open the door, jiggling the doorknob and that, I think they're mimicking people when they're trying to open car doors or successfully opening car doors and going in the cars. I think they're mimicking people. I think there's a lot of ways that Sasquatch is mimicking people. Now, I know that, say, a chimpanzee will mimic a person. Let's say they see them going in and out of their cage, and they know that they're messing with some whatever, and that's what lets them in and out of the cage. They're smart enough to figure that out. So when it comes time to accomplish some kind of a goal, they will mimic people. Takes them a while, I'm sure, to figure it out. Sasquatch isn't mimicking us just for a goal. They're mimicking us when there is no real goal. They're just trying to get into a car. They're trying to get into a house. They're curious. There's only one other creature on the planet that I know of that mimics humans all the time, and that's human children. Human children mimic adults to learn how to become adults, to learn how to become like them. That's part of our makeup. That's how we grow up. That's how we learn to live and that kind of thing. Sasquatch don't need to do that to learn to live. They don't need to do that to learn how to get out of something because they're not in anything to begin with. They're doing it strictly out of curiosity, and their intelligence level is, in my opinion, from everything I've heard, down at the level of children. I think that this behavior is because where they are at their stage of evolution, they are learning to become, they're right at the cusp of becoming like humans as far as, our intelligence. And I wouldn't be surprised to hear that they're starting to use tools, even though that occurred with us over a very long time, thousands and thousands of years before we learned to make, axes and spears and bow and arrows and all that kind of stuff. But then again, we didn't have another species doing it right in front of us to show us how to do it. I think Bigfoot are going to progress through those stages much more rapidly than we did. Much more rapidly. I mean, in a very short period of time. So I wouldn't be surprised to hear that Bigfoot are doing those kinds of things, because that is what this kind of behavior indicates to me. Now, this is just me. I could be talking through my hat to keep it PG. But to me, that's what it means. They're mimicking us. They're whistling. They're calling our dogs. They're talking like us and all of this stuff because they're trying to become more like us as far as, more intelligent and having things and all that stuff. Although I don't think they really care if they drive a Rolls, but they're just intrigued by the way we live, and they're aspiring to become more like that. I don't think that once they succeed, they might say, what the heck did we do? Let's go back to where we were. But that is yet to be seen. So anyway, I have to go drive the drunks home because I have to make money. If y'all would, please, if you can, go in the description below, hit my Patreon account, become a patron, and every little bit helps. And maybe someday soon I can concentrate all on the channel and all on doing the Bigfoot stuff and stop having to drive for Uber and Lyft to take the junks home in order to make a buck. So go into Discord right over here and talk more about this topic. And until the next time, y'all take it easy.